Alright, hello everyone. Welcome, this is the second episode of Rally with Racquet. I'm joined here with the SToRMCLoRD, Rocket League coach currently. He's a wonderful lad, known him for about, how long have we actually met each other on Overwatch.
Yeah, it would have been probably Overwatch 1.5, I want to say, years ago, because it would have been early on in Overwatch. How long has it been out for?
Oh, a year and a half, 2 years maybe?
It was,
Gosh,
it was
I don't even
really
know.
early on in Overwatch,
Yeah.
though, 'cause I stopped playing after Season 3.
I think you're playing Zenyatta? Was
Yeah, I
that,
just played supports mostly and
or was it
sometimes
Farah?
DPS. I played a bit of everything.
You did, yeah. We could all learn from you. Every time I try to queue a DPS in Overwatch competitive, because I actually played it like a week ago.
Dude, you can't get DPS in that game. It's a struggle, and if you don't perform, everyone's on you
I know.
instantly.
After one round, dude, it's like, hey, the DPS does not have gold damage. Just please swap off. You want to play support next round? Like, oh man, it
Yeah,
feels bad.
you just insta down the bottom.
Okay, so first things first, because you said this before starting on the podcast. One of the more interesting things about you is your diet. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your interesting diet, SToRMCLoRD?
Okay, so to start off with my diet, it's probably relevant to know I've also been sick along the time period of gaining this diet. So from about 2013, halfway through that year, when I was turning 18, I started getting really, really tired just in general, going to school, all that sort of stuff. I was falling asleep in classes, and it just progressively got worse from there to the point where I kind of couldn't function in a normal way to do work or study. For example, now my legs have tightened up a lot, where back then I could skateboard, but now I can't just because of the muscles tightening up. And what that kind of meant was I had to focus a lot of energy into trying to revert what's going on. And what that kind of led me towards was changing my diet. So I did a lot of research. I pretty much did it naturally the first time, going plant-based, because I stopped drinking milk. Because I just had a thought one day when I was walking down the supermarket that it's weird to drink cow milk and I don't want to, so I just completely cut it
Understandable.
out on just on a whim. I just completely cut it out just like that. Didn't have any cheese, any chocolate,
Yeah.
anything like that for months. And then I thought, oh, that's feeling pretty good. I'll keep going because the way I kind of judge it is whether I'm in bed for the week or whether I'm actually out doing things, because that's kind of the ebb and flow of how this works. I don't know exactly when I'm going to be well or when I'm not going to be well, and the more I could do things, the more I was happy or satisfied that whatever I'm doing is probably working because I'm able to do more things. So what then happened was I kept eating more and more plant-based. I pretty much cut down to just eating fish. That was the only thing I was eating that wasn't plant-based at the time.
Mhm.
And then after a while, I just got really bad nausea, which comes along with some of my stuff. Because have you ever had it where you've had a big tournament day on tennis or running or something like that in your past, where you finish the thing and although you're kind of hungry, you just feel so sick you don't want to eat?
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, that exact feeling. I would just wake up with that feeling every day as soon as I woke up.
Oh, yikes.
That was just general.
That
So
sucks.
I stopped eating pretty much for a little bit, and I got super underweight. So I dropped down to I think 56 kilos
Wow.
at my height now, which is pretty bad.
When was
So
this?
this was before I met you,
Right. So it would have been at least
like
3 years ago.
probably around that.
Right.
And then my mom got really worried, and then pretty much forced me to start eating meat again to put weight back on. I did that for a little bit until I researched really heavily into the nutrition side of things and actually properly planned out a plant-based diet. And then since then, I haven't really turned back. It's just been one of the big things for it that works for me is that it's very anti-inflammatory as a diet, because your body's not having to take in things that it has to work harder to digest, basically.
Yeah,
So it's just
breakdown.
a lot easier for you to then assimilate it. Thankfully, I don't have any gut issues. I can eat lentils, beans, all those things. I have no issues. So I'm really fortunate with that. I know people who don't have that can kind of struggle a bit more to get as easy like your nutrition profile without those things, because some days I literally just eat rice, beans, and lentils, and that's just my meal because it's how being that sick kind of taught me to eat was just whatever I can get down and it's simple, I just eat that. So I can eat the same meal all day and I'm fine as long as I can eat it. The food just kind of became a fuel source, and I just kind of picked whatever could get down the best, and then yeah, whatever works.
That is very interesting because like as you can understand with most people, when going into a diet that involves like one particular section of like a food system, people can be like understandably skeptical because as all humans are, when they want to delve into something in a singular manner, like it's difficult to change like what we've been taught throughout like our past and what is known as like the norm, right?
Yeah.
um I discovered this, and I feel like you can only discover it through personal intervention and like when you try to do it yourself. So I'm pretty sure I told you this, but I have indeterminate colitis, which is
Yeah, I know about that.
basically sort of it's very similar to Crohn's in short, but it's something that hasn't been like officially diagnosed or like has a cure. So yeah, it's basically very very similar to Crohn's, a problem with your bowels and stuff like that. So with my ex, actually, basically was mostly based on plant-based diets because whenever I would go over, their family was built around just general plant stuff, and what ended up happening was for pretty much the remainder of that relationship, I never got a stomach ache, which is very interesting because um, normally I would get probably one stomach ache in the morning every 2 days, and it was really, really bad, and I usually had to go to the toilet. But when I was on that sort of diet, probably because you wouldn't have to digest as much, and as you said, like it's easier on the gut. It's like 100% easier on the
Yeah,
gut,
it may
right?
not be you not. It's not that you're necessarily digesting as much. It's just your body doesn't
It's
invest as much energy
yeah,
because
it's
meat is
easier.
a lot more energy. Like it gives a lot of energy, but it also takes a lot of energy, and you
Hmm.
need the bacteria to break it down, and it's a lot heavier duty. So if one thing that I had happen to me was after 2 weeks of just being completely plant based, because I just went overnight like cold turkey on it all and just completely swapped. At about 2 weeks, I had about a day or two where I was just in bed, just in a daze. But then after that, I hadn't felt better than that in a long time from the diet change. But especially for you, smoothies and especially plant-based
Oh
smoothies
yeah.
would be really, really good.
We're planning on getting a because my grandmother, she has a smoothie. She's
Yeah.
for some reason, like my grandmother has like a lot of weird like accessories and stuff. She just always has these very niche items. She has like three smoothies for some reason, and I'm like,
With
what
like three smoothie machines.
three smoothie machines? Yeah, like, are you planning on
Is
starting a
this
shop, or are you gonna give one to
is
me?
it TV infomercials?
I don't know what she's doing, man. I don't know what she's doing. She just finds one and she's like, this one must be better than the previous one, so I'm gonna get that. And like the other one just ends up like rotting away in the cupboard. I'm like,
Yeah.
please, just give me one. I wanna have smoothies because yeah, like smoothies are a fantastic way to like digest like fruits and vegetables and stuff in like a quicker manner. Like and just generally because
Yeah.
you can mix stuff as well, obviously, which
I
you
put
know.
a lot of supplements in mine
Mm.
because
Yeah, you can
I don't
add whatever
really.
you want, really.
Yeah, I put so mine started off basically just recently I used smoothies just with the nausea because it's easier to drink a smoothie than it is to eat something when you're sick.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I just packed it with calories, so I just put a bunch of like bananas and peanut butter in mine. Just pack it out with peanut butter, dude.
Yeah. Peanut butter.
Yeah, peanut butter
Bananas and peanut butter in a smoothie. Okay. I mean,
with I put maple syrup in it as well to make it a bit sweeter, and then
okay.
just chuck a bunch of supplements in that.
Did you make that recipe up yourself, or
Kinda, yeah. I mean,
kinda?
I know banana and peanut butter isn't super uncommon. I mean, think
No,
of
no, no. That's done.
what's sweet? There's definitely some sweets with it. I can't think of them off the top of my head though.
Hmm. That is very interesting, though. So, like, you can wait. Was it you who said like, wait? Did you try a potato diet at one point, or like you?
No,
Okay,
I just
you
I
told me
know
about someone who tried it.
there's somebody who did a potato diet where they only ate potatoes for a month.
I could honestly do that, dude. I freaking
Yeah,
love potatoes.
I mean, you like if you had mash and stuff though, you'd have to make it differently if you're trying to keep it just to potatoes.
You would, right? Yeah.
Because I don't know, he might have just used like water and a bit of salt and pepper for his mash, and that's it. I don't know how he
Yeah.
actually did it.
Maybe it wasn't creative. It was just having like the same thing every single day.
Dude,
That'd be
just,
that'd be
like,
kind of boring.
Just boiled a potato and just ate that, just as it is.
Yeah. Well, you
I mean,
don't
I
know.
think like you'll get by on that, and I mean, it's kind of like when you've had famines in the past and you had people just surviving on potatoes. It's like something you can survive on, but
Mm.
I mean, ideally you get a bit more nutrients and stuff. Like if you want to be an athlete or you want to do other things, like you're not going to get by doing a potato diet. I don't think for a long period of time.
Yeah. That would really be funny though.
I mean, it's going to hamper your performance at the end of the day.
Well, you could literally be called the catch potato there, so
Yeah, you
yeah,
could.
you can have that nickname.
Maybe a
That's the one.
maybe a wrestler could do it.
A potato diet? Oh man. Look, I doubt it. You have to
I
be
think
on
they
a
would
pretty
struggle to
big
put on
potato
enough
schedule.
size.
Yeah, they all need to be jacked, dude.
Yeah.
I don't understand. But yeah, anyway, so the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is what you're doing now with Rocket
Yeah.
League. So of course you're a Rocket League coach.
Yep.
People may or may not know this. Probably do if you're tuning into this podcast. But yeah, so I forgot the team that you're coaching currently. You're
Rise.
coaching Rise. That's right, Rise. I was thinking like, okay, it's from a League of Legends song. It's a character in League of Legends. I was thinking like blue person. Okay, Rise. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, you're coaching Rise. How's that going? Because I know we'll get into coaching philosophy in a bit, but how are you guys going currently?
I would say in terms of teams I've coached in the past, the region was a lot more hospitable to growing as a bubble team.
Mhm.
So the way it's kind of worked, I don't know if it worked in Overwatch here like this, is you have a bubble of teams that are really good and they'll kind of just lead everyone else.
Yep.
So we've had about between like 6 to 8 generally, but at the moment we've got I think about 5 bubble teams that are just kind of a cut, generally seen as a cut above everyone at the moment.
Mhm.
And what kind of happens off of that is as Rocket League's gone on, we've got less and less tournaments in terms of weeklies that these top teams are playing. So they don't really play a ton of them. But then at the same time, there's no 20s to play basically against these top teams. There's like some lower 20s, a few a week we've had recently where we play those, but you obviously don't get that practice against the top teams that previously in the past, just through 20s, you would get just consistently early on in Rocket League. So the scene itself has changed a lot as time's progressed. And what's happened is the bubble kind of only practices against themselves as well, or in a thing called six mans. I don't know if you know of six mans.
Yeah.
But if anyone who doesn't know, it's basically just a system where you can join the server, you can rank up in the server, and then the best people play at the top level in that server, and it's called Rank S. But so obviously they practice a lot there, and they practice a lot against each other. But it's hard for bubble teams outside of that bubble to get the games against them now. So it's hard to say how well they'll do into the top teams because they just really haven't got the chance to yet. And then at the same time, how they're going against the bubble teams is they're just getting stronger and stronger against the bubble teams. So I'm pretty happy with their growth at the moment.
That's like the very difficult part, though, right? Like,
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
just not-
actually access that consistent
Yeah.
format where, okay, we're going to enter a tournament where we're going to be recognized as a team that can compete with like the bubble teams, because
Yeah.
like breaching through that sort of gatekeeper gap is always going to be the most difficult part, right? That's always the most like hard part for esports, because this happened a lot in Overwatch too, before contenders came about. When you're looking in tournaments where you'd basically, if you were considered not within like this bubble of like the top 4 teams or whatever, if you were to enter a tournament, you're going against them in the first round, or you're not allowed to enter like at all, really. Which, if you're going against them in the first round, for the most part in Overwatch there was like a ridiculously large disparity because you could never scrim with like the top teams anyway. So it would be like
Yeah.
it'd be difficult for you to attempt to recognize how like good that level is.
Yeah.
And then when you go against them in the first round, and it only happens like once a week, so these guys are like the top 4 teams are getting stronger at like a good pace because they're all scrimming each other like constantly. And the people outside of that bubble, they're just sort of like, hey, please, I want to scrim you, but it never really happened, you know. And
Yeah, that's
when
kinda
you find them in the first round, it's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna get stomped.
yeah, that's kind of what happens in Rocket League a bit too at the moment. But I mean, NA and EU though is a bit different in that regard because they have a lot more weekly tournaments where there actually are decent players playing it. Maybe not the full teams, but enough good teams that it's because there's just so many more teams in general. Like they have RLCS, which is 8 teams, and then RORS, which is another 8 teams. So they got 16 good teams straight up there because the RORS players, how it works is the top two play against the bottom two of RLCS to make
Mhm.
it into then RLCS in a relegation sort of match.
Yep.
So there's a lot more infrastructure there that we just don't have. We don't have enough teams. Like if we had RORS here, the bottom of RORS would just kind of be a joke.
Yeah.
Like there just isn't enough player density, so it makes it hard in that regard too for things to build from OC. I think one of the Rocket League players, Drupe, recently moved to North America, and I think if you want to really get into the pro scene for Rocket League, you kind of got to go to NA or EU and get into those sorts of scenes because it's just even if you're really good here, I think it happens in a few games. No matter how good you get here, it's like there's still that next level once you go international, sort of thing, and it doesn't always prepare you perfectly coming from a smaller region, unfortunately.
That is a great point, though. So, I've been discussing this with a bunch of people. How do you like propose to fix that problem? Because obviously, number one, like the big problem is player base.
Yeah.
And like okay, so the two main ones I think are player base and like the rewards for actually becoming a pro in Australia. So like the player base one's obvious. We obviously don't have like as many people as NA EU. That's a simple one. You can take that off pretty much. The second one's where it becomes like a little bit more interesting because realistically there aren't that many teams that have team houses in Australia, right? Like some organizations have them. Like I'm pretty sure, for example, Chiefs.
I think Legacy has one, right?
Legacy, I think have one. I know the Sydney Drop Bears have a high performance center. Blank had a team house. So yeah, there are not that many orgs that have team houses, and understandably because they're
The
probably
money, dude.
yeah
How are
they're
you
most
gonna get the
likely
money?
losing a bunch of money off that anyway. Like
Yeah.
they lose money off boot camps, let alone team houses, right?
Yeah, and if they have to pay for flights and all those sorts of things,
Oh
like
yeah, it is an
there's
absolute
not as
nightmare.
much density for the merchandise here either. It's like it's kind of a catch-22 always
Yeah.
around because in NAEU your team gets popularity there, it blows up. You got so many people buying your merch and stuff. It blows
Mhm.
up here. You got half the people if you're lucky buying the merch that you do over there. It's only
Look,
if you get that international cred that you're gonna get
to,
the big
to be
blow up.
honest, Storm, I'm not sure if there are that many OC orgs that have awesome merch.
Yeah, okay.
Like,
I haven't looked too much at it. I've seen some jerseys here and about, but
um, probably our best jerseys. I'm just trying to think. Chiefs have alright jerseys. Chiefs have an alright design. I don't mind Chiefs. I could get a Chiefs jersey. Renegades, which are now overseas in CS:GO, I think they probably have the best design. But half of
yeah,
their teams like now American, so
it's gonna
yeah,
happen.
there are not many good I don't really like the legacy design, just a sort of tree. I find
Yeah.
it kind of boring. But yeah, it obviously doesn't just revolve around merch. But like obviously you can look at prize pools as well. So
Yeah.
in America, at EU, there are a lot more consistent prize pools in that we're gonna have a weekly tournament. It's gonna cost this much, or you're gonna get this much if you win. And we don't really have like a weekly format with a variety of different esports within Australia. Like even within our top ones, like okay, so you have League of Legends, of course, with the Challenger Series, and you have the main OPL. That's great. They have a little good system there. With contenders, it's not really sustainable. Well, the good thing is with the OPL, I'm pretty sure all. Correct me if I'm wrong, people who do watch OPL. All teams that are within the OPL have a team house, and I think Riot helps with that too, which is good. That's great. I love that. But with contenders, they all don't. I only like one team, I believe, has a team house in contenders, and even then, like the prize pool's about is it 40k, which they're not even guaranteed to take the number one spot. they have to invest into the team house, they have to pay the players, like merchandise and stuff like that. So many things they have to invest in, and it's like they're barely getting anything back for their investment. And that's just how OCE works. Because the sad thing is of OCE actually is because OCE doesn't grow as much outside of OCE. Like, how many Americans and Europeans do you see roaming about? Like, actually, except for Rocket League, because in Rocket League we do have respected players within that game, right? So,
Yeah, that's true.
so that's like one of the only overlaps. It's sort of like, okay,
I guess the CS
it's
team as well. That was
CS
Australian
with Renegades
took
too,
this
yeah.
world.
So we basically need these top tier Australian teams to carry through on those esports, and then for
Yeah,
it to
pretty
leak in the rest of their scene to have global interest. That's what needs
yeah.
to happen. Otherwise, we're boned because we don't seem to have that much interest. Besides, like the very top competing at the international level. But
I
I guess
feel
that's how
like
it happens anyway.
I feel like team games are a lot harder here because to have the prize pool for a team game to spread out the prize enough that it's enough to live on is very hard.
Hmm.
Whereas I feel like fighting games actually insular are a bit better for this just because fighting games tend to be played at locals and lands. So I know just from when I was looking at playing some, I just ended up not feeling up to it, just feeling low energy. But fighting game tournaments here are actually pretty common. Like I know in
They
my
are.
area they have one pretty much every week, and I could do it for Smash, for DBZ, all those sorts of games. And I mean, the thing is like I could play an ESL tourney, and I think the prize was about $100 or something like that for the team. So that's split among three people. You could play one of these tourneys, and depending how many people enter, sometimes they just prize pool off the entry fee and stuff like that. So you can make more money off of like a single fighting game tournament than you can the teams. I feel like fighting games here are something that I think actually have us a bit more leeway and room to grow than the other genres of game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd agree with that from watching
I
watching
I do
fighting
agree,
games.
yeah, because just having one person mathematically,
Yeah,
is
I mean it's cheaper to go to any event straight
yeah.
up. You probably don't have to pay for a team house because if you're just gonna be flying them to events, I mean they don't need a team house. They can
No, they
practice
don't.
at home,
They
right?
don't.
I mean, as long as they have their training partners there and stuff like that. I mean, a boot camp's cheaper. You only have to fly one person. You only have to pay for one person's accommodation. All those things. So I
Hmm.
think it just works out a lot more economical is the big thing. But
That is true, yeah.
have too many massive fighting game players. I know that when I stopped watching Melee, there was a player called Spud. I think he might be from New Zealand, but we count him in the OCE region sort of thing as breaking out. He started playing a bit internationally in some of the American tournaments for Melee and did quite well.
That's good, that's good. I think we may have like a couple of good Street Fighter players as well that were from Order.
Yeah, I'd believe that. I think
Um,
yeah, I know that they have a GFin series. I'm pretty sure.
hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I think there's a bit of depth here.
There is, and hopefully it does grow. Actually, there has been a recent statistic that was recently released, actually, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So for Evo, they released a top 8 on the registrations.
Yep.
Did you end up seeing this?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen anything about Evo except for that Melee got kicked out and
Yeah.
Eunice got put in.
Well, that's a feels bad. That's a big
Yeah.
feels bad. A lot of people were sad about that, understandably too. But anyway, so they made a top 8 on the games and the amount of registrations that were there,
Yeah.
and I believe number 1 was Smash, which is
Yeah.
understandable. I
Yeah.
think
Ultimate's massive right
yeah,
now too.
it's absolutely massive. I think number 2 was Mortal Kombat 11.
Oh, really?
It's not even out yet, and it's already
That's
number 2,
interesting.
which is crazy. Yeah, I think 3 was Street Fighter. And then you were going down and down and down. Number 7 was Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is
Yeah.
quite interesting. I thought it would have ranked higher.
Yeah.
So it's second last next to Tag Blue.
BB tag.
I forgot what it's called.
BlazBlue tag, right?
BlazBlue Tag. Yeah, there we go. What do you think about that? Is the game dying, SToRMCLoRD?
I don't know because I don't really play it that much. Like I watched the what was it called? The saga that they had where Kazunoko hoarded all the Dragon Balls. I watched most of that because I really like watching Kazunoko. I mean, Yamcha player, my boy. So
Mhm. Represent.
Definitely watch most of that. I mean, that clearly isn't dying. The international sort of side of it, they're having a lot of tournaments. I mean, at the end of the day, Evo's just one tournament. So
Yeah.
overall, I'd say Dragon Ball's doing quite well as long as they get to keep going and they don't have like I think it was Tonami or something was starting a bit of something, but that seems to have got a bit quelled recently. As long as Bandai Namco can keep doing what they're doing, I feel like Dragon Ball will still have its kind of spot. I just think there's been other games that have come out that maybe spread the Dragon Ball community because let's say you're a Mortal Kombat 11 main player, but you didn't like the current one, so you might not want to enter the Dragon Ball tournament, so you can focus on that game or stuff like that.
Mm.
So, because I think playing multiple games, some of these players are nuts, dude. Like they're playing 5 games at Evo
Oh
or
yeah,
something,
that's crazy.
and
Yeah.
they'll get top 8 in every one. It's just your brain, dude. Like, I mean, I'd be fried after doing one 20 run, let alone playing it in 5 different games and having to swap all day.
I think we can both vouch for this. When you play multiple fighting games at once, especially as like what you consider like regular fighting game
If they're
players like you and I.
similar, because I can swap between Smash and DBZ, no problem.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I play on different controllers for them, and also it's just a completely different game. One of them's a platform finder, whereas one of them's straight 2D.
Hmm.
But if you ask me to swap from DBZ to one of the other fighters, like I mean maybe Street Fighter or stuff like that, it's gonna be worse.
See, the one that I had a problem with when I was playing a bunch of Soul Calibur,
Yeah,
when I was playing Soul Calibur then FighterZ, oh man, it was so ridiculously difficult because like
yeah,
I'm so used to just crouching and blocking in FighterZ.
yeah.
When in like Soul Calibur,
It's
like
the opposite.
it's exactly the opposite. So I'm going in FighterZ and I'm just freaking standing up like this, and then I'm in Soul Calibur and I'm crouching down. I'm getting hit by everything. Like I'm doing the opposite. It just confuses the hell out of me.
Yeah, it definitely happens, especially swapping between 2D, 3D. That's a big jump.
Oh
right
yeah,
there.
that is huge.
That's huge because you got these 3D monsters. Like some of the Tekken players, dude. I don't know. I really like watching Tekken just because of how long some of these people have played Tekken. You can just really see
It's
it.
a rich
just
history.
the development of the players is insane.
I love Tekken. We used to play Tekken.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
you
remember.
used to constantly beat me.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. I forgot who you played. I know who I played. I played a bunch
I
of Law.
played Jin and then Lars. I think
There
I
we go,
main
yeah.
Lars for most of the time.
Yeah,
though.
Lars. I
was-
remember that.
I liked how he was just solid. I usually just go for the solid fundamental character. That's usually what I play off of in most of the fighting games. Or solid rushdown mix-up sort of characters I like. I don't usually play like the true crazies or stuff like that.
Yeah,
I like to have
I
a
don't
bit of
find that
fundamentals
fun.
in there. Yeah, I mean,
Like
yeah.
when I played
you can probably
Bardock in
tell from,
FighterZ, I don't know. I didn't enjoy playing.
Bardock's fundamentals though, it's just oppressive fundamentals. Because every button he does just ends up being a ton of damage into a setup, and then if he ever has meter, he just kills you.
I just find it so weird how I just use the auto combo. They can be like 10 meters above me, and they just somehow end up falling into my arms somehow.
Oh, it's
like
disgusting. Yeah.
it's absolutely hilarious.
It's really disgusting.
So, right. So we've talked about. Well, we've even delved into fighter games, which is
Yeah.
actually quite interesting. So we can talk a little bit about. So you said already that you're not going to get Mortal Kombat 11, right?
Nah,
You got an
that's
interest in
not my
Mortal
style
Kombat.
of game.
Okay,
Nah.
that's fair enough. If they announced right at the end of the year they're going to release a new Street Fighter game, would you
Yeah.
consider learning it?
If it's not like Street Fighter 5, yeah.
If it's not like that's a very accurate
'Cause
analysis. I think.
I played Ultra, and Ultra was top notch. If Ultra was still out, I would still play Street Fighter. Honestly, I wouldn't have stopped. The only reason I stopped was because 5 came out and people stopped playing Ultra.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I really enjoyed Ultra. It was just 5. I didn't like it. It's yucky.
I don't blame you.
It's
Dude.
just yucky, dude.
All right, so one thing that I wanted to talk about as well was coaching philosophy. So both of us, of course, have coached. I'm a former coach, but I have coached in the past, so I understand basic concepts. So one thing that I like about your coaching, SToRMCLoRD, that
Yeah.
separates you from like normal coaches, is that you delve into like life coach stuff as well, which I find quite interesting, like developing routines, telling players like philosophical quotes. No, I'm not sure about the last part, but like, explain to me how like assisting a player's life in turn will help
Yep.
them in game, like that basic concept.
Okay, well, I guess the most basic one that generally comes up is a lot of players get tilted way too easily. At a high level,
Yep.
players at a certain point, once they kind of go, "Oh, I'm good," once they start losing, it's really annoying.
Hmm.
I mean, I've experienced this feeling too. When I'm playing a fighting game and then I know I'm losing to something bad, I get annoyed, but I like the way I get annoyed is a bit different, and that's why it doesn't work in the same way. But the issue is people often will spiral with being annoyed. They'll start getting annoyed and then gradually it gets worse and worse and worse. And what often happens is they'll start playing worse as well.
Yep.
So the way I think about the coaching is it's not just about them being able to do the things and know the things. It's being able to do it consistently in a calm state of mind. I like the idea of just being calm and calculated. So that's what I try and help my players to get towards. Or I also try to assess their personality. Like if they're a really fiery person, they may need to be emotional to play their best. But I just kind of view it as what's the way this person is going to play their absolute best, and then how can I assist them to get to that state. I don't think it's so much as like this is the way you should play this game or this is the way you should do this. I just think it's specifically for that person. I work with, so for a lot of my players now, I just specifically work off of what they want to build. I don't try and force them into any direction. I
Yep.
try and get them to visualize how it is they will achieve their goals and try and, I guess, put the path in front of them. And then ideally, what I would hope they learn from it as well is not just to be able to do it while I'm there, but to be able to continue those habits and kind of know how to create a path for themselves. So I feel a lot of people get stuck. And what I like to do is just kind of get them back onto their trail. I mean, sometimes they're not going to be the number one player, but it's what's their top level that they can get to and they can do, sort of thing.
I definitely agree with you, Storm, in that like you look at very strong player personalities. I feel like the only way that you can get through to them is to adapt like your own personal style and work with theirs as well, because it's very easy for a coach to get stuck in the same mindset and apply the same stuff to every single player. But like at the end of the day, not every single player is the same. If you have like a fundamental group of workers, I can support that philosophy, right? If they're all like reasonably similar players with the same goals, but especially with esports that have a lot of players, it's always going to be more difficult. But I like the idea of, for example, if we're looking at League of Legends, if you know like Doublelift, for example,
Yeah.
Doublelift is a player who always like notoriously has had I'm not going to say ego because I think he's settled down recently, but
Yeah.
he's a player that's so like stylistically and fundamentally different from like a lot of the players within the league,
Yeah.
and that he wants like this very carry centric play style. He wants to have like resources and stuff, and like how do you tackle this as a coach? You know, you need to adapt your own philosophy to what his is, and sort of reward him for when he does achieve his peak, but you need
Yeah.
to acknowledge like where that peak is and how you can access it the most. So there are different philosophies in that. Okay, we're going to focus on every single player evenly at the same time, which can work. I think there are two different sides of the board here.
I think
um,
that works for fundamentals. So
it,
for
it does
most
work
of
for
the time at a
fundamentals, yeah.
high level, you want a solid basis of fundamentals, whatever it is you're doing. If it's a team one, for example in Rocket League, you want to have a solid rotation for the three that works off each other. I mean, there's two main styles of Rocket League at the moment. One is that you get like super aggressive, you just boost stuff, you bump the opponents, you just keep putting pressure on the ball until they can't do anything.
Mhm.
Kind of like a boa constrictor sort of happening there. And then the other one is obviously to pass a bit more or play a bit more defensive. There's a lot of different styles, but like generally all of them revolve around having a solid threes rotation. So that's the fundamentals of Rocket League. So I think part of what I do is also make sure that everyone has the fundamentals down so that then what they grow into is also going to be solid. So for a player like Doublelift, for instance, if they consist because they've got the carry mindset. So what I'm thinking is, okay, you're a carry, so you're probably going to go 1v2 bot lane, and then you're going to get 3v1 because you're going to take that 1v2, and
Yeah.
at some point your opponents are going to figure that out and put an extra person there because they know you can do it. And that's where I would just be trying to encourage that player to kind of look for the weaknesses in their play and try and like iron those out so that as soon as they get that opportunity to carry, they just go straight in for it and it's really explosive. I like the idea of holding it back in a way
Mm.
and then just exploding as soon as you get that opening because that's when you're going to get the biggest results to my mind. I mean, that's how I play fighting games is I kind of try to wait until I get you in a disadvantaged state, and then as soon as you just get into the vortex or whatever, it's just explode
Hmm.
because it's so much better. It's so hard to deal with when it comes at you fast like that.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the way that, if we're looking at sort of for like coach quotes, for example, um, like the best offense is like the best offense is the best defense, or like whatever the quote is.
Yeah,
Um,
that can be true sometimes.
I I actually really like that quote because I feel like at the same time, in order to win, you always need to exploit openings, right?
Yeah,
You can't just stand there as still as a statue and just expect things to happen on you through a sturdy defense. Because if you're playing soccer, if you're playing tennis, if whatever sport you're playing, if you have a great defense, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you have to have points on the board, right?
yeah,
You
pretty
still
much.
have to have like a basic fundamental understanding of like both sides of the board because that's how like games work in general, right? You need to be offensive, defensive at the same time. I can understand like the concept of okay, having a great defense is great because in theory, like that means that there is less counterplay to it.
It's
If that
basically
makes
if
sense.
you're not making mistakes, it's on your opponent to not make mistakes. And a lot of the time, people aren't used to someone just not making mistakes. It's
Yeah.
something that I think has been very apparent in the Western scenes facing the Asian scene specifically.
Hmm.
You see it in fighting games a bit at times where the Western players often like they might drop a combo or something and then it goes random from there because everyone's just flailing, right? And you see it every now and then. But then you see the Asian players and just at their peak, at their top, it's just they're not making those little mistakes. Like it's you have to earn everything. And there is something to that where that'll get you to a certain level. But then when another player can do that too, there's a whole nother level there that you have to get to. So it's just about, I guess, leveling yourself up till you get to wherever it is you want to get to.
That's a good point, Storm. One thing we should actually talk about. So with a lot of esports, comparing like the Western to like the like for example like the Korean culture in terms of coaching, I always think it's very interesting because like for example Korean esports has like a very long rich history. They started esports before we did, and they started like
Dude,
developing
they
their
were they
players.
were coaching when
They
we were laughing at them coaching. I don't know why
exactly we
people
thought it was
were
a
like,
joke.
why would people ever meme a coach? It makes no sense because if you look at sports at all, because as soon as I heard that they were doing coaching, I thought, oh, it's serious now, as
Oh,
in
I thought
it's
it was
like
really cool.
sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea because a player's not always going to know everything, and sometimes you need that outside opinion or just someone who can help keep it into a focused path for the players. It just
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know why you. I mean, it'd just be if you don't want to listen to the coach that you'd be saying a coach is purely bad, right?
Yeah, that would never help you. Like, I think objectively, it was always great to have an outside opinion,
Yeah, even
because
if you don't agree with it, you can think about it. I mean, I've
yeah,
had coaching from other people in the past, and I can look back on it and go, that was absolutely terrible advice. But
but it was a
I
perspective.
can, yeah, and I can look at it and go, I'm not gonna do that, and I can just really make sure that if I see that again, I'm not gonna think about doing it, or I nip it in the bud straight away. Like, no, this is bad. Don't do that.
Hmm. Yeah. So the original question that I wanted to ask was,
Yep.
what do you think is like the fundamental difference between like the intensely well praised Korean coaching and like the default style of Western coaching? Do you think it's just like culture? Do you think it's the way that like the respect works in respective countries? Do you think there's some sort of trick to it?
Um, I mean, I feel like they just adapted it sooner. I would say for most, especially high-ranking teams, as long as they have a coach they respect, they tend to do it. But that kind of can be part of the issue. I feel like in the Asian countries, they probably would more default to respecting the coach straight away because they tend to be a bit more hierarchy focused in those countries.
Yeah.
So I'd say maybe that helps a bit, but I mean, it's just part of parcel of it though. It's like, okay, so the coaches there don't have to be as forceful. I mean, at times I've had to be a bit more forceful with players and go like, no, get your head in, or you're gonna get out, because it just has to happen at a competitive level sometimes. Where,
Mm.
I mean, I don't know, because I haven't actually coached in Asia. I don't know if at the lower level maybe they do have these issues like we do, and it's just that at their higher level they're more ironed out, or whether it is just purely cultural where they would listen to the coach regardless, or maybe I guess in the Western one, it just kind of depends on who you get, I guess, as to who you're coaching, because you get some pretty big personalities and some pretty big egos at times. So I guess it
Yeah.
depends what side of the spectrum the players that you get fall on. But in general, I would definitely say they just seem to have a bit more respect for the whole structure. They just initially saw the potential in it and said, yes, we want coaches, we want team houses. They did it first. They implemented all this first to make it all easier. And that's why they've dominated any team esport for yonks. I mean, there's very few that are actually better than, not better than their Western counterparts. I can only really think of Counter Strike, but that never really took off in the Asian countries as
Yeah.
much.
I really can I really agree with your first point in that I think you hit the nail on the head in saying that the great thing about like the Asian countries is that by default they have respect for the coach, and I feel like the difference is between like the Asian countries and the Western countries is that you have to prove yourself as a coach in the West.
Yeah.
Like that's a difference, and this is my theory as to why like in a variety of different esports like Asians have been the most innovative, because if you try and find someone who's trying to create something wacky in the West, like the players are sort of dismembering the coach and saying, "Oh, what is this guy even thinking?
Oh,
Like
dude.
this is so out of meta." But the Koreans, the Asians, they are the ones who
They
who
think
innovate
about it.
first. They think about it, and because their players by default respect their opinion, they're like, "Okay, we'll try this out." But in the West, it's sort of like, "Oh, this guy hasn't been a player before. Like, what's he talking about? He's like absolute nut," you know.
Yeah, I actually have something like that happened to me. When I first started coaching here, I was pretty much the first coach to start doing it, I would say. I don't think there was anyone else really. They started picking up a bit after I started doing it, but I think for a while I was pretty much the only one. And people obviously then found out what I was doing for my coaching sessions. And what I commonly like to do is we go into a private match, and one of the big things for players as they've been developing, I mean, I'd say at this stage it's not as important as it used to be, but it's still something that helps because it develops a lot of skills. But just passing together in a private match and just getting control of the ball in that way. And a lot of the other top teams were going, why are you guys doing that? There's no point to that. And I mean, my original teammates when I played said that same thing to me as well, and didn't want to do it. So obviously, when I played, I didn't get to do the full sort of coaching, or I guess not coaching, but team training that I wanted to do even from the get go. So I was onto this from a really early point because I always just thought about it like soccer straight away. Thought about
Yeah.
it like indoor soccer. So you'd have training sessions like you would in soccer. I mean, how are you going to hit? So for example, one thing I practice with my team, especially with one of the team members a lot when we just muck around, is we just do a lot of pre-flies. And now at this stage, if we're open, we can hit them consistently.
Mhm.
At least if I pass it to him, he can hit the shot consistently. I can't hit the shot consistently. I'm a beanbag, but that's beside the
You're not
point.
about
It's
those
just
days anymore.
like without having done all that training and just, I mean, we kind of just relax in those. It's not serious. It's just practicing it. It's like when you go practice a shot in a trainer pack over and over, you just do it without thinking, and it's just like doing that with your friend basically. So yeah, it really took off, I guess. I see a lot more people have kind of implemented that throughout the Rocket League thing now, and it kind of has become a bit more of a something that people actually think about doing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just remember early on I got a lot of shit for it, pretty much, and I found it pretty funny.
I I really like. I find it weird that people don't like to draw parallels between the sporting world and esports, because I think
Yeah.
there are like fundamental things that you can really extract from, like as we were
Hmm.
talking about before, coaching itself came from
Yeah.
the sporting world, right? So like when people are bringing like these very like straightforward concepts that are brought into esports, and they try to claim that it's like barren and like that it's very simple or like too fundamental for like pros to really like take advantage of. That's what sporting is all about. Like when you look at training sessions, as you pointed
Yeah.
out before, like training sessions, they don't exactly play real simulations of the game. They're practicing for the real simulations in the game. They're not playing a game itself. That's the key thing. There's like
Sometimes they are.
they are, but like it's not very
Yeah,
it's
it's
not very
often
often.
with different focuses.
Yeah, so you're focusing on one like
Yeah.
fundamental. So for example, okay, if we're playing soccer, this time I want us to. Oh, I don't know anything about soccer. Okay,
You're only allowed to score on a pass play.
okay, yeah, there we go. So like you're modifying certain aspects of the match to try and tinker your players to
Yeah.
by default react in that way, if that makes sense.
One of my favorite ones is you're only allowed to touch the ball once per person. Because
That's
you have
great.
to move. You have to move really well with each other to do that. It's something that a lot of people just they want to take a dribble, man. It happens in Rocket League so
Oh, it does,
much.
yeah. So Storm, talk to me a little bit about Rocket League Esports for Australia. So
Yeah.
this is one of the only few esports where Australia actually is pretty respected in. How do you think the future looks like for our region with Rocket League?
Well, I mean, Drippy's already over in North America, so he's
Yeah,
already going to be playing in America. So he's already showing that OCU can definitely create some talent. The international teams, it'll be interesting because so far Icons, they were Tainted Minds. They've rebranded to Icons now. I think they've won one game internationally now. I think they have broken their curse of not being able to win a game, but they haven't performed as well as Chiefs historically did when they had Drippy on the roster,
hmm
and Chiefs obviously didn't quite perform as well as they did when they had Drippy on the roster either. So it'll be interesting to see how the teams develop throughout this season. I think the biggest issue for OCE is that a lot of the teams shuffle a bit too much at times, and it means that players don't develop in, like, they'll be on the cusp of getting to that next level together, and they'll split
yeah,
because it's not there and
I
it's
feel
not
you.
fast enough for them. It usually happens after every season. Like there'll be a massive shuffling of players. So with that in mind, it I don't know. It'll depend. The international scene is just there's so much more diversity and depth there that it's going to be really hard for any OCE team going up against them. You're going to have to watch a lot of VODs, really understand how you're going to play the games against those teams and have a really, really strong basis for now to play these gameplays. You have to pretty much, you would have to be at the point, because this is what Chiefs were doing, of practicing multiple playstyles and being able to like do them easily against most of the OC teams to be able to perform internationally. I think you have to be pretty much wiping the floor with the majority of OCE to even have a chance right now.
hmm Well, that would apply for most esports. I feel
Yeah,
like the thing that I always like to say is when we have one team dominating in an Australian esport, I think that's great personally. Like a lot of people say like, oh, it's unhealthy because this team's just absolutely wrecking everyone in like a scene, but that means that they're going to be recognized internationally. That's like that's my philosophy behind the subject because a good example here for like Overwatch and contenders is like Drop Bears. They've won contenders several seasons in a row, and on multiple occasions, their players are just getting picked up, and going into like American teams. We have one that went into Overwatch League. So like the only way that teams are going to actually take you seriously if you're from a lesser region, like South America has this problem too, is if you
yeah.
have one standout team within that region and they're completely dominating. Because if they're competing with the rest and your region is recognized as a lesser region, then people won't take you seriously. It's like, oh yeah, they're within their own ecosystem. If they come to our world, they'll just get completely stomped. So I
That
think
was
that
that was actually a massive thing when Chiefs first came into the international. Is everyone thought they were just going to lose, and they ended up winning a few games, and that just shook everyone that they actually won and could take games, and they
because
did
Chiefs had
better
a
and
really
better each
dominant
time.
record in OCE, didn't they?
Oh, dude, it was. I think it's probably one of the best records, at least since the scene got bigger and there was a lot more investment in the scene. They've had the best record. There's
Hmm.
been a few records along the way, but I think this one, just in terms of the international notoriety and all that, it's definitely the strongest record that OC has seen for Rocket League.
Interesting. I would like to see the stats on like the records for oceanic teams. I would like
Yeah,
throughout several esports because I think
there
Chiefs
was
would
a
definitely be up there.
there was a very long chunk of time that they were just winning everything.
Hmm.
So
Well, no wonder why they're consistently funding their Rocket League team. I believe they now have, is it Zen on the roster as well?
Yeah, they picked up
They
Zen
picked
as
up
their
Zen
first,
recently from Order.
as Drippy has left.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's quite cool. So yeah, I'm not really as familiar with Rocket League recently. Because I used to watch a lot more Rocket League when I was
Yeah,
considering becoming a caster for the game, and I was getting help from you, like Daisu, Yummy Cheeseman helped me a lot as well in terms of like the broadcasting things. Shout out to Yummy, great person. So yeah, it's something that I want to invest into a little bit more now. Considering like I actually really like watching soccer, and the fact
yeah.
that like there's not really I mean, there are comparisons, but Rocket League is obviously accelerated. It, like gets rid of all
It's
like
kind
the
of more
long
like indoor soccer.
indoor soccer. Yeah, it's a lot more fast
It's a lot
paced.
faster.
I found it very interesting because Kieran Point and I used to watch like Rocket League
Yep.
late at night, and I always found that really entertaining to watch. I think as an esport, Rocket League it's only growing as well, and it seems to find fantastic sponsors every time. Like
Yeah. The biggest issue I've seen is that Psyonix has kind of gatekeeped any tournament that wants to be bigger than RLCS.
yeah.
They won't let any tournament have a bigger prize pool than
How
RLCS.
much is RLCS?
I'm not sure, but it's definitely in the millions at this stage. But
Well,
even then,
look,
it can't. I mean, I know it's like they don't want to get overshadowed by another tourney, for their world championship, because otherwise people will think, oh, that tourney's got more money, that it's worth more than the RLCS tourney.
mm,
So I think that's along the lines they're thinking. It's a bit unfortunate, but I mean, at the same time, that they can still put up a massive prize pool for other
yeah.
tournaments. So
In terms of like formatting, what do you think is better for an ecosystem to survive? Do you prefer like a league format, for example, like RLCS,
yeah.
or do you prefer sort of CS:GO type major where you have several like big tournaments across the years from like different organizers? What do you think would be like better in your ideal world?
Both.
Both?
Both
Okay.
having a league play and having
Cue the
lands
taco
like,
meme. Why not both?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I want to say I really like the way fighting games work. I just, the more I think about it in esports and stuff, just the way fighting games work is just really how I like it going.
The,
I
the
think
the only
the
problem is with fighting games, of course, is that you have to travel a shit ton.
Yeah, pretty much.
That like a lot of your expenses are due to traveling.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. It's unfortunate. But outside of that, I guess it's just a hard one, dude. It's just hard.
That's esports in a nutshell, dude. It's an
Yeah, pretty
absolute
much.
grind. So, what are your plans for the future, Storm? Do you still continue to coach for the rest of your life? Do you plan on coming a random fighting gamer in the future?
I mean, if I got completely well from my sickness, then who knows what I'd want to do because I have no idea. I can't. I don't. I found early on that I don't really want to think about what I would do if I'm not sick because there hasn't been too many periods where I've had like a remission, and then it means that I don't get like I don't get that thing by doing this. I don't get the thing where, oh, if I wasn't sick, I could do this, 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 and this. Because I'm
Hmm?
not even thinking about it. I just think about what I can do within my boundaries today, basically. So, I mean, my biggest focus right now is I want to get on top of this a bit more. I've been doing weights pretty consistently for the past 6 months. Been body weight and physical weights. Just really trying to put on muscle mass to try and alleviate some of the muscle stuff. I have found the more mass I put on, the less cramps I get. So there is something I'm finding the things. I'm on a good supplement plan. I'm on a good diet plan. I'm kind of I don't know. I haven't been doing YouTube. I haven't done anything just because I've been so focused on this and just it's just where all my energy's going. So I don't really know what I'll do in the future. It just depends how much I can fix this, and I guess also because certain parts of what's happened to me have been degrading. So it's how much is this going to degrade as well, is in terms of what my future holds really. Because I mean, I still want to be able to do things. I mean, ideally, I could just do whatever. I'd be hyper fit and I could go to tournaments. But at this stage, I feel like I would really struggle to get through a tournament itself. The last time I played a Rocket League tournament at a high level, I got a headache for the rest of the afternoon after one series.
Hmm.
So that's not exactly going to work if I have to consistently play against good people, like relentlessly. I just don't think that I'm going to be able to stand up to that. I feel like I'll be able to play well for one series and then I'll probably gas out. I won't have anything left.
Yeah.
If I were to play in the tournaments and stuff, I would like to I kind of all or nothing sort of person with it. When I played Rocket League, I wanted to be as good as I could get at the tournaments, and I got pretty good. It's just I didn't actually speak about it, but I started coaching due to getting tendon issues in my hands and arms, which is why I stopped playing tournaments myself. But that's another thing that kind of comes from my condition stuff is I get tendonitis really easily, so I've had to adapt to be able to work around that. I mean, I play Rocket League on a D-pad now.
Oh,
Um, did you not know this?
no, I never knew that.
Oh, okay. I've got my. With the last time we played, I was on D-pad, for instance. You wouldn't even
Oh,
know, right?
no, no, impressive, mate,
Yeah.
impressive.
So I've got the D-pad bound to WASD on the keyboard, and basically what that does is it means that I've only got 8 ranges of motion like a keyboard, but it's just on my D-pad. I find it's way less stressful on my hands. There's a tech, I don't know if you know of it, called half flips.
Yeah.
Uh, that doing that on a thumbstick, it hurts my thumb. It just makes me get really tired really quick, and I don't like it.
Mhm.
Doing it on a D-pad, I can do it all day. I don't care. It's just a super jump in DBZ, for example. It's basically a super jump.
Oh,
I actually got really good at Rocket League half flips by playing DBZ, and I noticed each time I train lots of DBZ, I get better at Rocket League even when I don't play it. If I play lots and lots of DBZ, my Rocket League would just be way better. And if
there
I
you go, mate.
practice lots and lots of Rocket League, it's not as good as when I just practice DBZ. I don't know why. Just DBZ helps Rocket League more than Rocket League,
You
apparently.
can have a ratio 70% DBZ and then
Yeah, pretty
30%
much.
Rocket
That's
League.
what I do. That's what I was doing when DBZ came out. When you first got me into the game, I was grinding.
I know
I
you
don't know
were.
if you. I feel like I was more solid then than I am now in some ways.
Probably, yeah. I'm
Because
not too sure.
I may have some bigger combos now, but I feel like then I was just way more solid, and I was also getting a lot more better. I kind of stagnated a bit now. I don't really care.
Ah,
But
you're still really good, dude.
yeah, I just play it for the fun. Same with like Apex and stuff. I
Mm.
I want to get better at it, but at the same time, I realize I have all these things kind of holding me back, so I just don't take it too seriously. I'll get better at my own pace.
So another question that I wanted to ask you, Storm,
Yeah,
is do you think, or actually, do you enjoy being a coach more than you enjoyed being a player? Because you've obviously had both sides of the spectrum. Do you think,
it's
like, I don't
definitely
know.
less stressful.
Mhm.
That's definitely a thing. I'm so calm when I'm not playing. Like if I'm on the side watching and like that, I'm just watching, just analyzing. Because I kind of think about it in the way like if they lose this match, what am I gonna say to them? Like just like looking for all the different things, and then also looking like if they win, what things might they need to work on? If they have more games in the tourney, like if they kept making the same mistake, I need to pinpoint that. So I'm just really focused on those sorts of things when I watch. So I don't get too emotionally invested. But I remember there was one time when my team was playing in the last match to make it into a qualifier, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and my mom started watching behind me, and she starts freaking out at everything that's close and something. I'm just kind of sitting there, just like, oh, okay, that was close. Oh, they'll get the next one, please. Just get the next goal. But I don't freak out a ton when I'm coaching, but when I'm playing, I definitely got a lot more emotionally invested,
Hmm.
and it was definitely a different experience. If I hadn't hurt my hands, I don't really see myself having quit. I was in an extremely good habit. I was very happy with my mindset for competitive. If anything, I actually had to really work on that when I first hurt my hands. It was a very interesting experience to say the least. That was probably one of the hardest things I've found from swapping from being a player to a coach. And that's partly why when I play the other games, I want to get better at them now, but I don't have that same drive of I have to be good all the time. I have to get better and better and better. And if I'm not getting better, what am I doing? That's basically the mindset I used to have with it. And I was very driven to just get as good as I could get as quickly as I could. And what kind of happened when I hurt my hands is I couldn't play. So obviously my skill level just kept dropping and dropping the more I couldn't play, and I had to kind of change my mindset to like, because once you start getting good and you understand it, you can kind of keep it consistent. It's kind of like why the bubble stays up there. They kind of know how they got there and they can just keep doing it.
Hmm.
And unless somebody else figures it out too and starts beating them at it, then you're not gonna really drop it. But what happened is I obviously lost all my mech and all that stuff, and then I had to learn to accept that I was now losing to players below what I know I could play at, which is something that was different before. Because if I lost to someone below what I knew I could do, it just meant I had to play more, I had to grind more, I had to make sure they couldn't beat me, right? But now it's like I can't play more, I can't grind more, I just can't do it. So that's partly why I ended up actually giving up on playing competitively in some senses, in terms of I still played as a sub, but I always just played it for fun from that point. I wasn't when I first started playing, I wanted to get as good as I could possibly get. Like I wanted to play internationally and stuff like that. That's something I wouldn't want to do now, because obviously if I play internationally, I know I'm going to get ruffle stomped in Rocket League. There's no way that my mechanics would be near a level. But at the time, that's where I wanted to push towards. So it was very hard breaking from a player that's super hungry to, actually breaking out of that. But I think that's partly what kept me doing the coaching, is having that hunger in the first place and being so invested in it, that's what carried me through the coaching, especially early on.
That's very interesting, Storm. I actually never knew that about you. Well, I
What,
I,
like
I I
that I
knew I
used
knew
to
about
play? Or
well, I didn't know much about you when you played. So
I was in a top five team.
mhm.
I'd say mechanically at the time, I felt quite ahead of most people. I was very fast early on for um where it was. I mean, obviously there was still really good players back then in comparison as well. But really early on, I was really happy with how I was developing. I just felt like I needed more time and to find a team that synced with me. My first team, I wouldn't say it was the best fit. We didn't have the same mindset of how we wanted to play the game, so it didn't work out how I wanted. If I'd had more time, maybe I could have found that and got into like where maybe I thought I could get. But at the same time, it's like I feel like I was quite happy with where I got to. Like, I got pretty good at the game. Just unfortunately, hand issues just caused me too much interference in the way to continue being a player. I feel like I've wanted to do it with fighting games, and I may consider going to a Smash tournament, but we'll have to see how that goes. I have to definitely feel up to it, and at the moment, I'm definitely not feeling like I could get through a tournament.
Hmm. Do you have a competitive history before Rocket League, by the way?
Yeah, I played tennis from a really young age
Okay.
up until about 14 or 15. Same thing with tennis. I always just wanted to get better at it. I had a lot of issues with any physical sport though, because I was born with issue with my legs. It's not just my legs; it's my whole body. But that's kind of what links into what I've got now. It's just like an extreme, like what I've got now is just an extreme version of that in a way. I've had issues with tight legs all my life, for instance. So jumping, I always used to jump pretty low. I never had a big jump until later on when I had some treatment for it. I'll get into that after this bit. But the tennis, obviously, I had some limitations. I generally wasn't as fast as everyone else just because of the leg stuff. And also, obviously it affected my arms too, but I mean, I feel like it probably just affected my power. I seem to have pretty good coordination, so it definitely didn't affect that. So, I had a lot of natural talent for tennis, but I was inhibited by my body in a way where if my body was just a normal body, I feel like I could have been a lot better
Hmm.
just out of being able to move in different ways that would have been a lot more effective. But that took a while for me, I guess, with tennis because I started getting a stomach issue at some point, and it was mostly from serving. Whenever I served, I would just get a really sore stomach, and then it meant that I couldn't smash or serve at some point. It
Oh
would
wow.
just get to a point in the game where it was just painful to lift the racket over my head, and I just didn't want to, which obviously made it awkward to play because my stomach's hurting, so it doesn't really want to move any which
Yeah.
way. Later found out that I'd torn a stomach muscle at some point, and I was just pretty much consistently just
Oh wow.
re-tearing it or just putting pressure on that, and it just never healed properly while I was playing tennis. So I quit tennis at the point where I just couldn't serve anymore. I couldn't get through a set. Like it was just ridiculous. So,
Hmm.
obviously that was probably harder. I would say it was harder going from being a tennis player, uh, in terms of the way I took it at the time, especially being younger. I didn't take it as well as like losing my ability to play Rocket League, for instance. That didn't hurt me as hard as the tennis because I really wanted the tennis real bad at the time.
I feel you did.
Uh, so then I transitioned to volleyball, and I did quite well in volleyball because there's other things I could do. I played setter, so I didn't have to jump. I had to hit every set. I'm a ball hog, so
Oh
every
dear.
second ball when you're a setter goes to you. It's supposed to go to you at least. So you can just be the biggest ball hog ever. It was the best position. That's my favorite thing out of volleyball. Is you can just be the biggest ball hog when you play setter. And yeah, I got pretty good at setting. I had acupuncture at this time on my shins because this was before I was sick. And the acupuncture was actually because there's certain muscles in my shin. There's one called the tabans. I've never used my tabans, so I can't walk on my heels, for instance. You know how you could walk around the house on your heels?
Hmm.
I've never been able to do that ever.
Wow.
So that's kind of a bit of a, I guess, intro to what's wrong with my legs.
Fun fact, yeah.
But
All right, go on.
yeah, so he was activating those with the acupuncture needles, and I was playing volleyball, and I just noticed I was just getting so much more height. Like when I went up for a spike, it's like, oh, this is what the other side of the net looks like. Because I'd never been able to jump that high before. But that was really good up until the point where I couldn't take the first thing I actually knew with my condition was I couldn't take the needles anymore. I got really bad nausea, and then whenever he tried to do the needles, shins would just they would not like it at all. I had to get him to take them out. So that was actually one of the first precursors, I guess, to things kind of going downhill for me, unfortunately.
Care to elaborate about your condition, by the way, Storm, and how
Yeah,
like
sure.
yeah,
So I guess to start off with, it's probably
because
worthwhile to
it's a
note
very
that.
hard name to pronounce. That's all I can really remember.
So first starting off, I was born 3 months prem, and then I had influenza as soon as I was born, pretty much after the antibodies wore off, sorry. And then what happened after that was my muscles went into total lockdown. Everything spasmed up and tightened completely. The doctors thought I would be pretty much completely unfunctional or dead. At one point, I think they probably thought I was dead as opposed to not even going to be able to function.
Oh.
And then it's just been, I mean, I got really lucky, I guess, that I was functional to some extent because it could have been that I couldn't even play games. I was like, I could be so like vegetative basically from what happened to my body. So I'm quite thankful that I've still got some functionality. I can still walk, I can still do the dishes, I can still do those sorts of things. I mean, as menial as it sounds, I mean, because I've had periods where it's kind of been taken away from me since this condition's gotten worse, and it's not something that I think you can quite understand until it's happened. And it's something that's really kind of, I guess, given me a lot of perspective on that and a lot of empathy towards people who've had that situation because it must really suck. If they're still happy despite that, they are very strong individuals.
And
Um,
what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, through my youth, I just had things with it. So I had serial plaster casts, which would help. I had splints, which I don't know if people have seen splints before, but it's just like things that go on the back of your legs to help you walk a bit better and keep your feet in a certain position. So I had ones that would pull my toes up so I could walk heel to toe.
I would not like to see a visual of that. Does it look as creepy as it sounds?
Should I go grab one of them?
Go for it.
All right, I'll be right back.
Go grab a splint. There we go. He's grabbing a splint. This is some next level podcasting right now, guys. We're going to some Alex Jones territory. He's grabbing a splint. I'm sorry for those in SoundCloud that you can't see this. I'll explain what it looks like. Okay.
All right.
Show.
So this is a splint. So
All
it's
right.
got like it's got like the foot bit which goes in the shoe, and then it's just like a shin pad, kind of like soccer, but it just pulls your foot up, basically.
It doesn't look as bad as I imagined.
Yeah.
It sort of just looks like
It's basically like a mini moon boot type thing.
yeah, that's what it looks like. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, it didn't look horrific. Okay, continue on, Storm.
I guess where I'm up to. So then the I guess the needles stopped working after a while, and then that's when the sickness started. I just progressively got worse. I lost a lot of my fitness. And then it's just kind of been I guess a struggle since then to retain whatever fitness I can and push back to new boundaries. So, I mean, now it's pushing back to the muscle. So I feel like I've built up the bulk that I used to have before I got sick. So now it's just pushing back to getting, what more can I get back, basically, and that's where I just push to now. But a good example of what happens to me is your creatine kinase is a marker in your blood that comes up when you do strenuous physical activity. So when you've run a marathon or something like that, you might get between 200 to 300. So imagine how you feel after you run that marathon, right? Like your muscles are tired, you don't feel like really doing anything, your brain's kind of foggy, like all those things, right? My good level is 400, with bad levels ranging up to 1,000, and that's consistent. That'll just be all the time. I don't think there's only been one time when it's gone down to around 250 or below 200, and that was in my remission period, which lasted a very short time. It was only a few months or so.
Wow.
So in terms of the effect of that, just like I wake up and it's like I've run a marathon. Basically, is what my body's telling me. So
And
pushing
you
through,
still like work out now and again, don't you?
I work out pretty consistently, as much as my body can take. Basically, I have to.
That's amazing, man. The fact that you can
Yeah.
still. do that
So
on a
I
consistent
guess
basis.
I guess it's just why I've been so driven with all the other things I've done because this has been a lot harder to deal with. Like it's a lot
Mm.
harder to be driven to work out when your body doesn't even feel like doing anything than like training Rocket League. But then obviously I've had to find the balance and I mean of everything, the weightlifting and the diet and all that's probably got my biggest priority of everything I do right now. Just because it has to, otherwise I'm gonna suffer and end up going backwards, and I don't really want that anymore. I don't want to like spiral backwards, so
Yeah.
it's just I've had to figure out ways to fix it. But definitely the tiredness is really hard, and also I would say because I mean, imagine you just run a marathon and then somebody told you to play a fighting game tournament. You don't think you're gonna play at your best, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I really hate is that even with tournaments I played, even in Rocket League, it's like I knew if I wasn't sick, there's like another level as well. So it's kind of like it went from tennis where like if wasn't born prem and didn't get influenza, you know, I don't know there's another level, and now it's like that level's been taken away, and now it's like oh I know there's like I've had that level for 17 years. I know
Yeah.
what it's capable of, and I had my remission period for a little bit. And in that period, when I was playing fighting games, I don't even know, dude. I was reading my opponent's minds to the point that it scared me at times. Like it took really good players to beat me at that point. I played against some really strong players, I remember, and if I played against them now, I don't think I would have a chance. Like they're just so far ahead of me now. But back then, with how my brain was working, it was just it. I can fire really fast. It's just that my body is just not in a state where it can consistently do that, unfortunately.
So this not only translates towards like physical like health, but it sort of drains you a little bit mentally as well. Would you say that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because I just feel tired, dude. Like,
Yeah.
if you run a marathon, you don't feel like writing an essay, do you? You
Mm.
just feel like you just want to go sleep and rest for the rest of the time until you feel a bit better.
Yeah,
It's
you're
just,
right.
I'm in a constant state of that. So I've had to find how do I still do things? How do I function? So that's, I mean, I guess it's how I've developed a lot of my game stuff is now is around that. So I've got I guess a lot of different habits to a lot of people, but it works for me, and that's all I needed to do basically. Because I mean, ultimately, I'm going to be limited. I'm not going to be the best in the world at it, but I just got to do what I can do.
That's the good thing, man. It's actually quite inspirational in that like you can't obviously play at like a peak level as a player, but you've made sure that you haven't like sat on your ass and just like watched from the sidelines. You're still getting involved like within coaching, and you've been doing it for like a while now. How long have you been coaching for? About like
It's probably about 2 years
two
now, but
years,
it's been
yeah.
on and off because it was partly with the coaching. I wanted to do things like streaming and YouTubing and really
Yeah,
promoting
you had a lot
myself
of
as a
stuff on your YouTube
coach and
channel, but
putting myself out there. But I just found as time went on with my condition stuff, it got to the point where I had to take a break from even coaching my one team I was coaching.
mm. So it was hard to
And
juggle all that,
no, it's not. It
or
wasn't.
like
I wasn't juggling at that point. It was. I got to the point of such exhaustion because I had a growth spurt last year. I got to the point of such exhaustion during that I couldn't even coach. I didn't feel mentally capable to coach. I honestly, it's interesting because my condition has taken me to the point of actually being a simpleton in some ways. You know, like someone who's got. I'm not trying to be mean to them, but someone
yeah.
who's obviously had something happen to their brain, maybe trauma or something like that, where it's caused them to not have the same level of intellect. I mean, maybe it's something that happened later, maybe it's something that happened at birth, but I've kind of gone to that state where like my brain just isn't going past, you know, one gear. It's only got like one thing it can think of, and it's interesting going to that sort of state because it's like because obviously my brain it somehow like knows that there's a lot more there. Kind of in the
Mm.
same way now I know that there's still a lot more there that could be opened. It's just that my body's not in a state to allow me to utilize that much of my brain. I mean, I could force it, and I have been able to force it in the past, but that often has repercussions these days. It's kind of like All Might, where he's got his power running out, dude. I feel like that with my brain at times. Like towards the end of me playing 20s, it was just my brain's power was just gone, and there's just nothing left.
Okay, that analogy just brought me in. Now I know exactly how you feel, dude. With All Might.
Yeah.
So Storm, is there anything that you want to talk about before you segue out of the podcast? I think we've been reaching like the an hour and a
What's your
half.
favorite food?
My favorite food. Oh, that's a really
Right now. Not like if you could have any bowl of food in front of you right now, what would it be?
oh well. Right now, I would like ice cream because it's boiling hot. If you're talking about right now, Storm,
Oh yeah.
um,
What about actual solid food?
it's actual solid food. Um. Okay, so I think beef and black bean really nice.
Yeah. Well, like a beef and black bean sauce or something, rice.
With like rice, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
my
I,
mum used to
I,
make
I
some of
really
that.
enjoy curries as well. Curries are great.
Oh, dude, curries.
A
I've
nice,
feasted
spicy
curries.
curry.
Yeah. Oh damn.
There you go.
Now you made me want food.
Oh, you
Good
can
thing I
have.
got some pasta. I got pasta in the fridge, man. It's
You
good.
always have a bunch of food. I've noticed that. You seem to have a lot of leftovers.
Yeah, I what I usually do is because I'm so lazy, is I cooked one big meal and then I just eat it for the next 2 or 3 days. Just the same meal. My mom thinks I'm crazy because I just eat the same thing over and over, but it works. I do it. It gets
That's
the food
that's
down.
next level, dude. That's next level.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
I eat most of my food cold as well. Most people would not be able to eat how
Really?
I eat.
Cold?
Yeah, I like cold food. Like, there's pasta in the fridge. I'll just go grab it cold and eat it like that. It's
That's
just
yuck,
how
dude.
I do it.
Wow.
It's not yuck. It's
Do
fine.
you like if you could you have pizza cold? Is it like the same thing with pizza?
Yeah, I just have pizza cold.
Okay.
I got leftover pizza. I'm eating it cold. I'm probably not gonna heat it up.
Well, with pizza, I can sort of understand because like the pastry sort of like turns a little bit mushy.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't cook it in the microwave regardless, though. I don't use it for anything. I hate the taste out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel you. I can agree with you on that part.
Yeah.
Like that for me, like food in its best state. Things that can be crunchy, I like crunchy. For example, like when I have garlic bread, for
Crunchy
example.
potatoes.
So yeah, crunchy potatoes are great. When I have garlic bread and I like put it in the oven, I like put it on its back for about 10 minutes, and that's supposed to be its max, right? And then
Yeah.
afterwards, I put it like on the front where the garlic is like spread out as well for about 5 minutes too, and like it's looking dark brown, but that for me is my favorite state.
I love crunchy things. There's like a point where it becomes burnt and it's not good, but there's a point in between there that's so good.
Oh yeah, that's the problem though. Like the leeway, because if
I
it
ever
does
cook
turn
some
burnt,
food,
it's
I'll have to
awful.
make you a paella.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm
Have you
keen.
ever had a paella?
No, I haven't. I haven't actually.
Okay, it's a Moroccan dish, but it's based on scorched rice.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
So the idea is that you don't mix it and stuff. So you get that's to the bottom of the of the dish. So you can just scrape it out. It's so good. I've made it for friends, but I'll have to make it for you if I make you some
So
food.
it's Moroccan?
It's Moroccan, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, or
Right.
I think it's Moroccan. I'm not 100%.
Because
but
you're
I
in
know
you're in Perth, right?
No, I'm in Adelaide.
Sorry, Adelaide. Yeah, I always get confused between the two. For some reason, I'm just that sort of negligent person from New South Wales. Like I don't understand the states outside of me. I hope to move to Melbourne though soon. Actually, Melbourne
Yeah.
is way better than New South Wales.
It's an interesting
It's-
city. Also,
It's-
BAM's there.
BAM's there. Yeah, I actually plan on going to BAM.
I would like to go to BAM, compete in BAM. That'd be fun.
Yeah, dude, I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
I was talking to a commentator, actually, and he said, if you continue working on your stuff, I could be commentating a few matches at BAM,
Oh, that'd be sick.
which would be cool, yeah. So I've been, like, intensely watching every time before I go to bed, like, Dragon Ball FighterZ tournaments,
Yeah.
and it's been fantastic. And, actually, last
I
night
recommend
stream,
watching some of the Smash ones as well.
so, what's the date today? It's the 5th. So 4th of February. Wait, no, March. We're in March, not February. It was my most popular stream. We had like 40 viewers, and we were you were there. That's right.
Yeah.
So we had 40 viewers at one point because someone ended up getting me a host. Thank you for that person. And then we were like averaging around about 20 to 30. So yeah, we just had like a really huge lobby of Dragon Ball FighterZ players. Like, and most of them were competent too.
Yeah,
Like-
they're pretty good.
like
I was
we had-
watching your stream and just enjoying watching.
Yeah, it was really fun. We had a really good Piccolo player who had like a really wicked setup after Hellzone Grenade
Yeah.
where he grabbed you afterwards.
Yeah,
That was
That
amazing.
was pretty nice. I wanted to see more snaps from him, more snap setups, but that was still looking clean.
Yeah, it was a bunch of damage regardless, and he got a knockdown afterwards in the
The way
corner.
I play Dragon Ball now, dude, I feel like I'm just all about the snaps. It's like I'm like an
Well,
addict
there
for
were
cocaine.
two-
I'm like, give me the snap, dude. Give me the
There were
snap.
two
snap.
Android 18 players there as well, so there were
Yeah.
a bunch of snaps.
They weren't snapping as much as I do though. Like I feel like when I play Android 18, it's getting constantly snapped.
That's why I don't like versing Android 18. Android 18 is my like kryptonite for Dragon Ball
Although I
FighterZ.
feel like that's starting to happen with my Vegeta Blue as well.
It just pisses me off being snapped like constantly. I don't know why. Like as soon as I see me getting grabbed and then like
Yeah.
the orange like line
Yeah.
just goes through the screen, I see my other character pop in. I'm like, fuck me, this is so annoying. It just triggers me, dude. It actually just makes me pissed off.
Okay, but you probably get annoyed when I do it to you all the
Yes,
time.
dude. I honestly get really like for Vegeta Blue, it's not that bad because I'm like at least he's using a meter and like he doesn't have like well, he does have pretty crazy mix-ups, but like
I feel like it's more honest. Like
it
I'm
is
not
more
gonna be
honest.
able to- yeah, it's
Because
not like
Android
Cell
18's more
sort of-
disguised, I feel, with her entrance.
It's a bit more grimy, dude. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to know when you get frames, and she can like drop something, and it gives her like an advantage because you think she didn't drop it. And so there's a lot of little tricky
you give her
things with that
respect.
character. I mean, when I played 18, it's very easy once you get a hit on your opponent in the corner. It's just pretty much game at that point because you just cycle them.
I know.
I know there's been a few games where I pretty much take out half your life on each character to start the game, and it's just so hard playing back from that. Because even if you kill one of my characters, all three of yours are half, which is like one combo for most characters. Where, I mean, you saw my Vegeta Sparking Luke come out once in game last time. So.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, I'm probably gonna have to use Spark to get out of this. And
Yeah.
I don't want to use it because I want to keep it for my wonderful Yamcha comeback, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you've gotten a lot better at using your Spark early though.
Yeah, because I remember watching Sonic Fox play, and like he was doing in house with like someone, and the person that he was playing with, he's like, oh, I'm just getting absolutely wrecked, and Sonic is just like, if you think that your character is going to die, and you're in the corner, just use sparking. Like it's just worth to use your sparking, because it's basically like, oh, you just save your character.
How long have I been doing that for though? I feel like
You've
I've been doing
it for
it
ages.
since,
Yeah.
for, like when it first came out and people were doing it of the pros, I saw them do it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. You get
It
a
does,
3v2 and lose sparking, but at least you have a 3v2. And I mean, there's been times where I've been come back on because somebody had their level 3 sparking, but the majority of the time, if you have 3 characters, if they're sparking and they get in block stun, you still have 2 assists that they don't.
I
You
think
have a
it's the
lot of
idea of
advantages.
like, oh, I have level 3 sparking, you know, I'm gonna have more damage and stuff. I want to do some
Yeah.
like wicked combos. That's the reason why they keep it for the last character.
I mean, it's not necessarily bad to keep it if you trust in your defense. It's just that usually you get into a certain situation, and it's like, yeah,
it's
nah,
a
just
climb
pop-
though.
I feel like there's something that is really good that isn't quite as noticed after the sparking is that huge combo you get if you touch them in that spark. Where my biggest focus when I pop my spark early is, do I have bar? If the answer is yes, I am going in like nothing else. I want to make the most of that time period that I have the spark to regain the momentum, and it's that momentum shift that's huge in Dragon Ball Fighter.
So okay, this is a good subject to end on actually, FighterZ, because they're both. Well, you haven't been playing it as much as me. I've been playing it a bunch.
I'd say I'm quite knowledgeable about the game.
But you
I
are
haven't
knowledgeable
dropped-
about the
I
game.
haven't dropped off. I mean, my play may have dropped off, but what I understand of the game is just there. It's been there pretty much the whole time.
So, what do you think about like the current balancing for FighterZ? Like, okay, so the two main. So we can just talk about general characters, like as our first point, and the second point was the guard cancel changes.
Yep.
So we'll go first with characters. So, in my opinion, probably. I'm trying to think who the best characters are at the moment. I'm making a second tier list video, by the way.
I haven't honestly seen the changes.
For the characters.
Yeah.
So basically, a lot of the top tiers got nerfed.
Yeah.
Gotank's pretty much remained untouched. His spinny ball thing got nerfed, but the rest of him's pretty much identical.
What way did it get nerfed?
Oh, I'm not too sure. I'll have to think about. I think it's like the metered version's more unsafe.
Oh, okay,
perhaps?
that's fine.
Which is fine, because like it was just stupid how you can just use it.
Gotenks is ridiculous, dude. Like I don't even have good Gotenks combos or proper setups, and I can just run face with him. Like
He has everything.
he's nuts, dude.
Oki set up off a level
I've been
1.
playing Gotenks as well. Remember my original team was Vegeta Blue, Gotenks, Yamcha, and Gotenks and Yamcha were both considered bad at the time, and so was Vegeta Blue, and he's still considered bad. But that was my team, and I was doing work with that from the get-go.
One day Vegeta Blue is going to be recognized as top tier, and you're going to have like the wizard hat just smiling at the camera. It's like, yeah, dude, I knew it this whole time.
I don't think he's going to be top tier, but I think that if a good enough player played him, he's got the tools as a point character to put you in the vortex. and if he puts you in that vortex, you're done. That's what needs to happen. So it's just about
Yeah.
having a player of that caliber that can actually pull it off against them. But early on in the game, there was a player called Fame who played against Sonic Fox. He did it to Sonic Fox with Vegeta Blue. He put him in the vortex and he beat him. He beat him for one game out of the three, but he beat him. He couldn't get it going in every game, but I mean, if he could, I feel like he could probably challenge Sonic Fox, and that was with Vegeta Blue. So he
Mm.
played double blues, so Vegeta Blue and Goku Blue, and that was
Oh
working
wow,
quite well for
double
him.
blue. That's a pretty big
Yeah,
PogChamp. That's a sort of unique thing with FighterZ though, and they're like
a lot of team
a
that we
bunch
just
of
don't know about.
characters, yeah, that we don't know about, but they're like what I call snowball characters,
Yeah,
in that you have like Ginyu, Nappa, Vegeta Blue, like characters that if you're in the corner, and if they get a hit on you from mid screen, like you're probably gonna lose the game. But
yeah,
but like they all have like the common problem in that you're like you have a disadvantage on mid screen, so it's difficult to get like a
yeah.
consistent scenario to be in that situation in
I
the
mean, that's
first
where you
place.
use your assist to get in and
So so,
stuff like
so
that.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
means you have to invest assist, but at that same time, it's like the only way you can get in is with an assist. While with like top tier characters, the assists are like another layer, if you know what I mean.
I wouldn't say that. Like with Vegeta Blue, for instance, I do it a lot without using my assist. Is just doing a wrecker, like one single wrecker on your
And
shield,
then
and
into a
seeing
low,
what you do.
and
Yeah,
or
or
like
like
overhead, or cross
yeah,
up
and it
even.
just like there's so many options. I could also backdash. Like there's a lot of options that I mean even I don't use, and like I feel like I mean there's been times where I just do a setup with Vegeta Blue, and it's like cause you think I'm gonna go in and use an assist, I won't, and it messes you up because I just didn't like just changing your timing even slightly in fighting games can be huge. So
Hmm.
I'd always try to mix it up and make sure that you don't get a good read on what I'm trying to do or as I'm going in so I can keep getting the pressure. I do notice you're picking up on my habits a lot more and I kind of kick myself for having the habits in the first place, but at the same time it's like, okay, good, he's like actually punishing the habits too, so
That's how you get better, when people actually start punishing you for like stuff that you do on the regular. With like you're
yeah.
getting complacent, you start
Yep.
winning games by doing the same stuff, and it's like, what? I don't need to get away from this pattern. I don't need to stray away from the forest.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just where having the pool of experience definitely helps.
Yeah, I noticed I improved a bunch by playing with like all of those great players daily.
Yeah. It's
I
definitely helped you a lot.
Yeah, I have like I didn't play well. I only played Dragon Ball FighterZ with you at launch. I never like played online
Yeah,
or
you
anything
got
like
me
that.
into it.
But like recently, for the past like 3 months, I've been playing pretty much every single day. Um,
Yeah.
and I finally like learned basic V and Bs, for example.
Dude, I'm
After
so glad that you can finally do the full B&B combo. I've been
yeah,
trying to convince you to learn it for so long, and I've been doing that B&B since like our
I know,
second
I
week.
know.
I learned it so quick, and then you've just been kind of because just the fact that I could do the B and you couldn't early on was just like the
What's the
biggest reason I
difference?
won games.
Yeah,
Because every time I hit you, I did like 3k damage. Every time you hit me, you did like two. It's just this, I was just doing more damage and had bigger combos. Although I feel like even now I do have bigger combos and a bit more depth to what I can do. But at the same time, now that you have the B, you have enough to win. That's the
yeah.
big thing. Like you can do the B into a super and you've got enough that you can kill me like 60-70%. That's all you need. You don't need a TOD, you don't need anything fancy. You just need to be able to dump your meter, kill the character.
That's the thing, right? Like when you play fighting games, when you don't have to think about the basic stuff, is when you start getting good at the game. Because
Hmm.
the thing is with fighting games, right, is because there are so many layers.
It's so overwhelming,
So
dude.
like the first layer is you need to know what you do, your character does, and the second layer is you have to know what the opponent does. The third
Yeah.
layer is you need to know what works like in harmony, what your character does to your opponent's character. So like you have to think about all those stuff at the same time. And if you're struggling to do like basic fundamentals on the combos, that means you're adding an extra thing that doesn't really need to be thought about. But like you're adding it there anyway. You're just in the middle of combat and you're like, okay, shit, I can't pull this off, and then you just did it, and you're like your brain feels stressed out, and it's like, oh shit, what am I going to do for the mix up afterwards?
Yeah, that definitely early on in my fighting games I was terrible. Like not putting it lightly at all, I lost to the majority of the people. There was especially when I first started playing Street Fighter,
Mhm.
I just got beat all the time. I remember at the time I had a bad mindset as well, so it kind of doubled down in being quite bad. Even back then, I was quite good at being a training mode monster, so I was quite good at like forcing myself to train and stuff. But in terms of actually applying it in a match and doing all that, I was really bad. This is partly why I think I'm so good at understanding and helping others with it now, is because I had such a tough time getting in control of my own, and through that is what kind of gave me the ideas and how to do it and help other people to do it too. But dude, early fighting games, it's a struggle. It took me about a year or two, I'd say, before I started feeling just comfortable. Like once you understand neutral, advantage state, and mix-ups, I feel like you're in an okay spot to start fighting good people. But before then, if you don't understand neutral, you are so screwed. Neutral is so important for a
Yeah,
lot of
it
the
is.
fighting games. I mean, in Dragon Ball Z, it's a bit less apparent because you can kind of get by if you learn really good combos and you can hit the super dash button, you can probably win some games. So
Accurate.
there's up until a certain point that'll win you games. Up until you kind of run into players. I mean, I'd put you at the skill level now. You're not going to die to someone just spamming super dash all game
Hmm.
now. So with that being said, that's a lot better, and this is the wall that those players will hit. But it's interesting. Like definitely fundamentals that took me ages, man. But once you get them, you kind of it just goes across every game. Like I
It
remember
does,
when I
yeah.
first started playing Dragon Ball, it was just instantly, oh, okay, and then I just instantly had mix-ups and combos
And
and
you think you like forget about the combos, but you don't. Like
yeah.
I still remember the law combos from Tekken.
Really? I
Yeah,
can't
I
remember a
do.
single if you ask me to go do one of the Lars combos, I think there's only one I'd be able to remember how to do. Um, but because I have a Smash background, I don't. I guess the combos are different in Smash. You don't have
Hmm.
a ton of true confirms outside of like really really hard tech, so you didn't do them that often. I guess with Street Fighter, I would be able to do like I could list off a bunch of the combos, but actually being able to do them and perform them, like Street Fighter is actually so hard. If you go back and
There are
play
a lot of
Ultra,
tight like frame.
dude, Dragon Ball Z is Babby mode.
It
I don't
is
have to think
absolute
about
baby
I
mode,
don't
yeah.
have to think about how clean my inputs are. But on Street Fighter, I gotta be clean. I can't do this sloppy half circle. I gotta be doing good ones.
Yeah, even in like Soul Calibur, I noticed that too because you have yeah, like perfect timings,
Yeah,
and with certain combos you had to get like a perfect timing in order for it to like launch back up or like link properly or like screw.
yeah.
And
One
and it's
frame
like
links, dude.
yeah,
One
and
frame
if you
links.
fuck it up, like what you just did there wasn't safe, so they can punish you afterwards.
Yeah,
So without the link, it's difficult.
I really like the direction fighting games are going now, where instead of it being so astronomically hard to get good and into the game, they've kind of lowered the skill gap but not decreased the skill ceiling.
Yeah,
You look at like Ultimate, they've got a good skill ceiling on the game. The good players are consistently winning. They're good. You look at Leo, MK Leo, he's just winning everything right now.
hmm
But then at the same time, the game enables him to do that in a way. But for newer players, it's a lot easier for them to reach his level because what he's doing isn't as hard mechanically. In historically, especially for Melee, if you've seen any of that, that game is a hand buster. It will destroy your hands if you play that game for a long time. You got to be
yeah.
really careful. It definitely caused me some issues with my tendonitis stuff. Was actually playing Melee. That
I haven't played that
it
much
is
Melee actually.
if you're actually technically good at it, it's brutal, dude.
I
It's imagine Dragon Ball Fighter Z times like 5 in terms of inputs, and that's melee. Just it's just nuts.
and looking a lot shorter too because Dragon Ball FighterZ has like really weird long combos
Yeah,
that
I
are
mean, there's a lot of
unnecessary.
downtime in DBZ. In Smash, there's no
Yeah, there's
downtimes when
no
you're getting
downtime. You just in
comboed.
it.
Like, yeah, so I guess that's a very different combo structure in Smash. But like learning how to play the neutral in that game, and then like standard 2D fighting games. The only game I don't really understand the neutral in is 3D fighters because they're just a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I really found it difficult to understand like Tekken and Soul Calibur at like a high level because
Yeah,
like
it's
not only
hard.
do they have really difficult inputs, you also have a 3D space around you too.
Yeah, it's
So
a lot
that's
harder.
yeah, that's another dimension you have to worry about.
2D definitely keeps it keeps it easy.
Look, I prefer 2D.
Yeah, I do too as well. It just makes it so much simpler.
mm. People complain about this actually. Like, oh, 2D fighting games like are so old school, but I feel like fighting games to me, in terms of like input accessibility and just being onto a simplified like platform. I feel 2D is probably the best way for it to work.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
It's easier.
3D
There's
is
less
sort of
things that can
awkward.
go wrong.
Yeah, I'm not saying 3D is bad. It's just like trying
It's harder.
to
It's definitely harder.
exactly.
I think. Like mad respect to anyone who can play Tekken at a high level. Those guys are. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to say they put in more work than the other fighting games, but the 3D is a whole nother ball game. I mean, they might not be as good at 2D, but often the 3D ones can come into 2D and just do really well. And for 2D to go into 3D, it's not quite the same.
Exactly, yeah. I know Sonic Fox delved into. I don't think he went into Street Fighter, but I know he went into Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
He got pretty good results. I think he played as well a lot.
Oh yeah.
I'm
I'm not sure of any of the Soul Calibur characters. I'm not really up to date with Soul Calibur at all.
It's
Don't
a pretty
really enjoy
fun game.
watching it.
It's sort of similar to Tekken, but they have their differences.
Yeah, I watch a bit of Tekken here and there, but it's mostly Smash at the moment or DBZ, but mostly Smash to be honest.
Yeah, Smash is fun to watch.
Yeah, it's really good.
It is, dude. It is. Well,
Alright, well, I think we should toodaloo and
yeah,
go get
we
food
should
and stuff.
we
I'm
should
getting
yeah.
hungry.
I'm gonna have a shower after this because when I record my podcast and when I do streams, I don't have the fan on because I don't like having background noise. So like I'm low key sweating right now, and yeah, I'm just gonna I might even have an ice bath at this point, mate. that's how I'm feeling. But yeah, thank you very much, SToRMCLoRD, for being on the podcast. Do you have any closing moments? Any closing remarks? You know, a lesson for the younger people of this generation? I don't know, whatever.
What, I don't know.
Okay. Very good. I
guess-
put you on the spot.
I guess work on the things you want to work on within yourself and try and find the parameters of what you can do and how that works with your goals. And I guess just try and think about it in new ways if you ever get stuck. Try and look at it from a third perspective. I mean, one thing I think most of the time, as a general rule, I am an idiot. Like at the base of it, I do stupid things. It happens way too much. So when I'm deciding on something, I think, would an idiot do this? And if the answer is yes, then I don't do that thing. So it's just having a bit of self-awareness with it too can just mean that you can avoid doing stupid things. But honestly, it's pretty unavoidable at times. I feel like you're gonna always make mistakes. It's just how you learn from them. So I feel like that's such a common thing that people say these days because it's like half the people have figured out that it's just like you got to learn from your mistakes, and then the other half just haven't. And it's just everyone's got to catch up to it, and then we'll all be on the same page.
I feel you, dude. I feel you. Thank you for your philosophical insight, Storm. You're always fantastic, mate. So this has been SToRMCLoRD, coach, friend of mine, very, very good lad. This is, the second episode, so thank you guys for watching this video. Take care. This will be on SoundCloud and YouTube. Take care, guys. See ya.